Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2021 Virtual National Work Zone Management Conference. My name is Matt Moore. I'm with ARTBA staff, and I will be your tour guide and MC today and throughout the rest of the week. And I say tour guide because I'm going to give you just a two-minute little presentation on what REMO is all about and how to use it. Right now, we are in presentation mode, but that room you were in before, networking mode, is also pretty neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple slides showing you what it looks like in there and what you can expect when you're in the networking environment. So this is a quick screenshot of what that looks like, that networking room, and there's me smiling, there's my mug smiling right there on my table. Couple of interesting interface things you should be looking out for. The first one, if you look down below, if you are at your table and you want to be seen and heard at your table, you'll turn your camera and microphone on just like in a Zoom call. Think of the tables as like individual Zoom rooms. And then, of course, this presentation space is for just the presenters, of course. But you think of it like that those are individual Zoom rooms, and then you can have conversations. Next stop on our tour is our agenda. If you look there, there's a little flip chart. You can actually see that on this screen as well on the top right. There's a little flip chart, and if you were to click on that at any time, you would see the agenda pop up for all 3 days of the event. So that's just there at any time for your enjoyment. We move along, you'll see over to the right, there is a profile section. And if you were to click on that, you could edit your profile. So I'm clicking on that now, as it were, and you'll see in a second that you can edit your profile and have any kind of information that you want other people to see about you right there. So that's kind of cool. We encourage you to go ahead and edit your profile at some point during the day. Later on, when we're in our networking mode, like in about an hour, for our break, if you were to click on a table, so just double click on the table you'd like to visit, and you will sort of automatically pop up there and be able to have conversations. This is a conversation I was having with another presenter earlier today. So you can see that the little heads pop up just like another Zoom call. What else do I need to tell you? Oh yeah, last but not least, there are booths that our exhibitors are offering. So please encourage you to visit those booths. Just like a regular table, if you double click on one, you can go and talk to the exhibitors. But if you just want to see what they have to share, and you click on the logo at that booth, a booth like an exhibit will pop up for you, like this one. And in this particular case, you can watch a video about workzonesafety.org. You can visit the website, and etc. So that is my conclusion of that, to let you all know. And I'd like to welcome up onto the stage now the moderator for our first panel, the welcome panels, Brad Sant from ARTBA. So Brad, why don't you come on up and join us? There it is. Thank you, Brad.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. We really appreciate having you at our 2021 Virtual Work Zone Management Conference. I'm Brad Sant, the Senior Vice President of Safety and Education at the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. I am so excited to be here, and I'm proud to say that I've had the honor to work with the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse, the host of this conference, for nearly 23 years, almost since its inception. I think Jerry Ullman is the only one that beats me here on the team as far as longevity. But we are very excited to have you here with us today. We have a great program lined up this week, and you're going to receive up-to-the-minute information on some of the most important issues facing our industry today. To begin with, though, I'd like to introduce you to Martha Capitano. She's my partner and colleague from the Federal Highway Administration and oversees our cooperative agreement with the agency. And so let me tell you just a little bit about Martha. She's a transportation specialist in the Federal Highway Administration's Headquarters Office of Operation, and she specializes in work zone safety and commercial vehicle safety in work zones. Martha has worked with Federal Highway for over 20 years, and in her current capacity, she provides leadership and guidance to the development and implementation of effective work zone management practices. She manages several key cooperative agreements for Federal Highway, including the Work Zone Clearinghouse and 2 of the work zone training grants, which with organizations including ARTBA and ATSA. She has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Puerto Rico. So let me welcome up Martha just to say a few words and say hello to all of you. Martha, come on up.
And as a quick reminder to all our presenters, to come up onto the stage, there she is. Make sure you turn your camera and mic on, and you'll be welcome up.
Oh,
You're here, Martha.
sorry. Thank you, Brad. Good morning, depending on Federal Highway is very serious about the safety of all road users and workers in and around work zones. We share our passion for work zone safety with our TBA and other partners that are here today. I am very excited about this conference and I encourage you to participate during these 3 amazing sessions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Martha, for saying hello. And Martha is really hardworking and behind the scenes, just making sure this and many other projects work so smoothly for Federal Highway. Well, to kick us off today, we are very pleased to have Steve McGue with us. He is the President and Chief Financial Officer of the Sugar Land, Texas-based HCSS. He was elected as the 2019-2020 and again as the 2020-2021 American Road and Transportation Builders, or ARTBA chairman. He has 35 years of experience in the construction industry. He joined HCSS in 2005 as the Chief Operating Officer, and he added President to his title in January of 2015 and Chief Financial Officer 2 years later. His company, HCSS, specializes in developing software to help heavy, highway, and utility construction industry companies streamline their businesses and operations, bid for new businesses, maintain construction equipment, and manage projects. McGue has been a distinguished volunteer in national construction organizations for 15 years. He earned his bachelor's in civil engineering from Texas A&M University and his MBA from Tulane. So welcome, Steve.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the 2021 Virtual Work Zone Management Conference. As Brad said, my name is Steve McGue, and I am the 2019 to 2021 chairman of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. I'm also the president and CFO of HCSS. I'm excited to welcome you to this meeting as roadway construction safety has great personal and professional significance to me and my company. HCSS is a software company that focuses on the heavy and civil sector of the construction industry, as Brad mentioned, helping companies streamline their operation. It's our 35th year in business, and one of our 15 products is safety software that currently has over 20,000 workers, from project managers to foremen to owners to safety professionals using it every day. Safety's always been a passion of mine and one of the reasons I became involved with ARTBA in the first place. 36 years ago, the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration in AASHTO, brought together construction executives and public agency officials for a landmark national conference on highway work zone safety. That meeting was the first of many national and international conferences and educational workshops that followed, all designed to share best practices and provide perspective from, quote unquote, both sides of the barricade in an effort to help reduce motorist and worker fatalities and injuries on road construction sites. That safety partnership is still strong as ever after nearly 4 decades. It was a recommendation coming from a subsequent work zone conference in 1994 that led to the creation of the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse, which for 24 years has provided the most comprehensive work zone safety information in the industry and now hosts this event. As long as there's work to be done to improve our nation's infrastructure, there will be a need for meetings like this to collaborate and develop the best practices, procedures, and technologies to improve the safety of all roadway workers, users, while improvements are taking place. Our current legislative environment is a prime example. In the next few weeks, Congress is expected to turn its attention to funding improvements of America's infrastructure. And roads, bridges, rails, ports, and airports are going to be a significant portion of that investment. The need for continuous improvement and safety are simply part of construction, renovation, and maintenance, and need to be prioritized equally with design, cost, efficiency, and production. As you'll hear in the next section, we need to do a better job of understanding when, where, and how roadway users and workers are being killed and injured in work zone related incidents. That knowledge is essential in targeting resources towards fixing the problem. We know the numbers we reference currently are understated due to reporting, tabulating, and tracking deficiencies. We're working hard to improve those estimates, but even the data we do have show a 42% increase in work zone crashes between 2013 and 2019. Working together, we can do better. Meetings such as this are incubators of ideas that will enable us to find and incorporate better means and methods to safely do our work. That will not only improve the lives of everyone that uses our transportation network, but also protect those who build and maintain it. If this is your first Work Zone Safety Conference or your 100th, I hope you'll become even more acquainted with the expertise of the ARTBA safety team and the services provided by the Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse. Take advantage of our programs to prevent worker and motorist deaths in roadway work zones. Thank you for inviting me today. I look forward to a great program.
Thank you very, very much, Steve. We appreciate you taking some time to be with us this afternoon or this morning, I guess, as Martha said, depending on where you are. And as Steve mentioned, we are pleased that we've had such a strong partnership for many years with AASHTO in this area, and it's indicative of how many states are here participating. And so we're very pleased that our next presenter is Jim Timon, the Executive Director of AASHTO. And Jim has worked for AASHTO. AASHTO is a nonprofit, nonpartisan association that supports and represents the interests and missions of the state's departments of transportation. As AASHTO Executive Director, Timon oversees a staff of 130 professionals who support their members in the development of transportation solutions that create economic prosperity, enhance quality of life, and improve transportation safety in U.S. communities, states, and the nation as a whole. I've known of Jim many years when he worked as the staff director on the Highways and Transit Subcommittee of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. He was a friend of ARTBA back then and continues in this capacity here. Timon graduated from the University of Delaware with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics and Political Science, along with a Master's of Arts degree in Public Policy. So Jim, this crowd and this topic is not new to you, but we welcome you to the stage and to talk to us a little bit today.
Well, thank you for having me here today. Look, I really do appreciate those kind words. I've always enjoyed working with ARTBA, both in my previous roles, but certainly as the executive director here at AASHTO. I think we have a great relationship between the two associations, but also in general between the state DOT community and the road building community, especially on important issues such as work zone safety. So thank you for inviting me to participate. Thank you to the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse and the staff at ARTBA for putting this together. And thank you, Brad, for inviting me to be part of the opening session. As much as I would love for this to have been in person, you get me live from the comforts of my kitchen this morning or this afternoon. I'm really happy to be taking part in this important work here that we're going to do over the next few days. While the need to address traffic safety and work zone safety in particular remains the same until we achieve zero fatalities, we are really encouraged by the Biden administration's focus on people, safety, and equity as we all strive to make progress towards the goal of zero traffic fatalities. One of AASHTO's focus areas is communicating the value of transportation. And a key message that we need to send to everyone is that these projects that we're all working on and the work zones that go along with those projects will result in improvements that to our communities and to the quality of life of our citizens. So we really need to focus on kind of shifting the argument or the rationale to the users of the systems and the communities that are going to benefit from these investments that folks see in the projects that are out there that we're all working on. To do this effectively, we think we need to work closely with our historic industry partners, like everyone here on this call, but also work to bring in some of the non-traditional groups that to participate in this effort and to really rebrand the work that we're doing so that we can talk more about building a system that's going to be safe and efficient for all users of the transportation system and that will serve us well into the future. I also want to take a moment to mention that AASHTO's new strategic plan that was approved by our board of directors last fall provides some guidance to the association in supporting state DOTs to find a way to connect America with the transportation system of today and tomorrow. You know, really building on what state DOTs and AASHTO values, those values, important values of safety, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also collaboration, transparency, and trust and integrity. It's those values that are really the core of foundation of the new AASHTO strategic plan. It was a great process for us to go through with our state DOT members. We got a lot of buy-in from our membership, but also from others within the transportation stakeholder community. And we think that those values hold true across all of our members, all of the state DOT community. We're excited for that to be the foundation that we'll be working from as we look to take on these important transportation issues over the next 4 or 5 years. When it comes to work zone safety priorities, I think it's important to note that AASHTO's role includes supporting the states as they work to ensure that the work that they perform in the roadways is done in a manner that provides the lowest risk and the most efficient environment for all workers and road users, and that states are able to build and rebuild the transportation system for today and for the future. With states using the safe systems approach, all users and workers will be accounted for and treated equitably, including in work zones. And we know that there are some challenges that states are currently facing, including dealing with a younger workforce with significant training needs and a need for a holistic look at the transportation network to ensure that the decisions that are made outside of work zones, such as speed limit decisions, do not adversely impact work zone operations and safety. And we also need to pay particular attention to risky road user behaviors that often carry into work zones. And that issue of behavioral, the behavior of the drivers out there on our transportation network in general, but specifically in work zones, is one that that our members are extremely concerned about, and we're working with our partners at the state and local level, as well as at the federal level, to identify areas where we can help improve and reduce some of those risky behaviors by those road users. I also want to point out that last year, AASHTO formed a joint subcommittee on work zones with members from a number of AASHTO committees that have a role in work zone safety, operations, design, and other aspects of the work that state DOTs do. In total, there are 11 AASHTO committees and councils that have responsibilities in some aspect of work zones. And the subcommittee, this joint subcommittee, was formed to facilitate collaboration across all of those subcommittees. The committee supports state activities related to research and policy issues and sharing best practices, as well as identifying technical support needs for the state DOTs. So the efforts of this joint subcommittee will help make sure that each of these individual committees can communicate better and to work together to better serve state needs on this important issue. Currently, this subcommittee is identifying initial opportunities and activities and has identified a handful of priority areas, including sharing best practices across the states as it relates to work zone safety, collaborating with partners such as the road building industry and law enforcement and standard setting organizations, looking at innovation and how that is changing work zone safety, looking at the safety data that we're able to collect to see if we can identify trends in work zone safety and areas that we need to pay closer attention to. looking at research. We usually use the National Cooperative Highway Research Program for most of the research work that state DOTs and AASHTO do. But we are really excited to be able to collaborate on topics of mutual interest with folks here at this conference as well. And finally, I would say training is another issue that this joint subcommittee is looking at. AASHTO has a web-based training program, the TC3 program, that we think is a great foundation for us to be able to build off of for additional training opportunities on work zone safety. We've really experienced an uptick in the usage of this platform, especially during those stay-at-home orders that started to go in place about a year ago due to the pandemic. And we just think we want to use some of that momentum behind the TC3 program to continue to leverage kind of that e-learning platform to make sure that we're training as many people as we can from a work zone safety standpoint so that we can continue to make progress towards our goal of improving work zone safety. So in closing, let me just say that this joint work zone subcommittee is going to serve as a focal point for the AASHTO community to promote collaboration across the association to support state programs as we seek to improve work zone safety, that the safe systems approach, connected and automated vehicles and transportation systems management, we think are really going to change the nature of transportation as we see it today. But these changes we think are also going to provide a great opportunity for us to make significant progress towards zero traffic fatalities and a reduction of serious injuries, specifically as it relates to work zones. So we're really excited about what the future holds in this area. We're excited to continue to make progress in this goal, and we're really excited to be working with all of you to achieve those goals. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Jim, for joining. And now we'd like to invite Martha to come on stage to introduce our next panel of presenters. Martha?
For general updates, we will have David Johnson, who's my team leader for the Federal Highway Administration. It is the team leader for management and work zone management at the Federal Highway Administration Office of Operations, a position he has held for over 2 years. Prior to that appointment, he worked at the Colorado Department of Transportation for nearly 13 years, leading teams in weather operations and commercial vehicle operations. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Meteorology from the University of Northern Colorado. Please welcome David.
Here it is, Martha. You guys hear and see me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just keep going here, I guess. So, yeah, good afternoon or good morning. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. It's very important to us that we keep thinking about work zone management and how it feeds into work zone safety and getting to that vision of zero deaths. So thank you again for the opportunity. So to begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about some data so that we can, kind of understand the importance of why we're here. So in 2019, the most recent year for which we have concrete data, 842 traffic-related fatalities in work zones, which was up from 757 in 2018, which is, a problem. So we know this is an issue. So some more data, the number of fatal work zone crashes involving large trucks or buses increased by 16%, while crashes involving a rear end collision increased by 29%. Most notably, the number of fatal work zone crashes where speed was a factor went up by nearly 40%. Additionally, the number of worker fatalities in road construction sites increased by nearly 9% between 18 and 19. So that's kind of the background and kind of the data on why this conference is important. So some of the things that if on to mitigate some of these trends is this. So since 2006, the Work Zone Safety Grant Program has provided over $20 million to ARPA for training and to support the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse. Of that money, which is over 20 million, over 10 of that went towards ARPA successfully delivering nearly 2,000 classes to over 51,000 field personnel, engineers, and maintenance staff involved with highway construction. ARPA also developed over 40 fact sheets, online safety training videos, learning modules, technical guides, and technical advice documents for transportation agencies and workers available on the clearinghouse. Of the rest of that money, nearly $11 million went towards the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse grant, which assisted ARPA in distributing over 85,000 posters for annual Work Zone outreach campaigns. They also hosted 14 in-person virtual safety conferences, symposiums, and workshops, as well as attended over 150 events and conferences to distribute clearinghouse materials. Also, the update to the clearinghouse website to make it more modern format, providing improved searchable databases, interactive data, and work zone crashes information, and also to maintain an active work zone safety listserv of over 2,000 people who are involved with the updates that we send regularly through that listserv. We also continue to work with FMCSA, NHTSA, ARPA, and other safety stakeholders to improve commercial motor vehicle safety, CMV safety, in other words. So right now we're working on 10 targeted CMV workshops, which will also, those 10 states will have state-specific action plans on how to improve their CMV safety through work zones. So that's an important, really interesting and important part of this. We're already, I believe, 2 states in out of the 10. So we'll continue to work on moving those forward. Also, soon we'll be conducting some of our research and contacting some of our stakeholders to assist us with the development of an FHWA Work Zone Safety Strategic Plan and Roadmap. What we're calling it the WZS, or Work Zone Safety Strategic Plan, will serve as a starting point and foundational reference for programmatic goal setting, performance measurement, investment, research needs, and to inform broader developmental goals and how we align with some of the new administration's goals moving forward. There's also been a recent emphasis on understanding the role of data for non-recurring events, which includes more than work zones, but obviously work zones is involved in that, that disrupt normal operations, maintenance operations particularly. So this information obviously has broad uses throughout the project delivery lifecycle and across the broad stakeholder audience. This issue obviously touches many parts, but the hot button issues that we deal with is safety, mobility, and emerging technologies such as connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and et cetera. So some of that includes the Work Zone Data Initiative, which we've developed a framework describing work zone events that are initiated, tracked, and used. Also, agency-focused guidance on implementing work zone event data infrastructure. To continue, the Work Zone Data Exchange is another part of this. We have done great work on that. We have $2.4 million that we've sent to states that are interested and who have provided proposals for us to basically send innovation to their state for work zone uses, and then that data feeds into a broader work zone data exchange. The other thing is put work zones on the map, which is a work zone data exchange partnership and awareness campaign that develops education and potentially engages partners on capabilities, benefits, and progress of the data exchange. So we'll be hosting a webinar on April 29th to share the work zone data exchange. It's titled Put Work Zones on the Map. The toolkit will be a part of that exchange, and the webinar information will be coming out in the next few weeks. So be prepared for that if you're interested. Also, another part of what we're working on is the non-recurring data framework, which obviously loops in more than just work zones. But it's basically a strategic plan that feeds into some of the information that the Office of Operations is working on at FHWA to inform operations. So that includes traffic incident management, it includes road weather, but also obviously work zones. So all this information is starting to feed into a centralized repository that we can use and other states can use to plan out their operations. We have some other program updates that I'd like to touch upon real quick. The 2021 National Work Zone Awareness Week, which is April 26th through April 30th. The Michigan DOT is hosting this. The kickoff event is April 26th with the theme, Drive Safe, Work Safe, Save Lives. Other programmatic improvements that we've been working on is the Work Zone Management Capability and Maturity Framework, which we continue to do workshops, process reviews, and regional roundtables. We do that on the road weather side as well, and it's very successful. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to either Martha or myself, and we'd be happy to host those as needed in your states. Also, data-driven process reviews. We're working with some lead states to develop case studies to figure out systematic and holistic approaches to work zone processes on some of these events. These processes are obviously included in 23 CFR 630 subpart J. So they are necessary, but the team, our team is looking into how we can change those to be a little bit more acceptable and understanding to state DOTs. Also, smarter work zones. We focus on the development and demonstration of innovative strategies such as speed and queue management systems, products like worker safety such as barriers, autonomous truck-mounted attenuators, and tools such as the ITMS implementation tools. So with those tools and those insights and that data, we feel that these initiatives are feeding towards a safer, more safe environment for our work zones. So if there's any sort of issues or information that we need to be a part of, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy for those solutions, that enhance work zone safety, mobility, and constructability. So with that, I thank you. I appreciate you for being a part of this, and thanks for inviting me to be a part of this as well. So I'll turn it back to the host. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll have Scott Ernest from the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Scott Ernest is the Associate Director for Construction Safety and Health at NIOSH, where he oversees NIOSH research for the construction sector. He has been working on construction issues for much of his career. Prior to joining the Office of Construction Safety and Health, Scott served as branch.
Thank you, Martha, and it's great to be here to participate in this conference. It's really a lot of fun to work with ARTBA And I'm excited to give an update on some of the things that are going on at NIOSH related to construction, worker safety and health, as well as work zone safety. I wanted to remind everybody that NIOSH is responsible for occupational safety and health nationally. We're a sister agency of OSHA, which is in the Department of Labor, and NIOSH itself is in the Department of Health and Human Services Center for Disease Control. And so as we've gone through this pandemic, we've been extremely busy dealing with COVID in addition to the many other issues affecting construction workers. So I wanted to start off with just touching on the mission of the NIOSH construction program, which is to eliminate construction fatalities, injuries, and illnesses through a focused program of research and prevention. The reason this is important is that if you look nationally, about 20% of work-related deaths occur in the construction industry. Construction represents about 6% of the U.S. workforce, but about 17% of the fatalities that are occurring in any given year. So that's really the largest number for any industry. Next slide. And as far as the structure of our program, we actually oversee 3 different types of research. We have intramural research, which is occurring by basically government employees within NIOSH itself. Then we fund extramural researchers at universities. And then we also have the National Construction Center, which is a cooperative agreement that's competed every 5 years. And that's currently held by CPWR. That's the National Construction Center. And they help us with a lot of different areas of research and also research to practice. Research to practice is extremely important at NIOSH because we don't want to just do research. We want to make sure that that research is impactful. And again, we work extremely closely with the OSHA Construction Directorate, which is our sister agency. Next slide, please. So the next several slides come from a CPWR data brief, and it just gives you some data about the problem within the industry, how it relates to other sectors. And so if you look at this slide, on the left-hand side, the blue bars represent the number of fatal injuries in 2019. So as you can see, if you look at the raw numbers, construction has had more fatal injuries than any other sector. It's followed closely by transportation and warehousing, and then ag, forestry, and fishing. But it's a very dangerous industry. But then on the right-hand side in the orange, that shows the rates. So that's based on 100,000 workers. And if you look at that, you can see that the rates of fatal injury are actually higher in ag, forestry, and fishing at 23.1, as well as in mining, even though there's a lot fewer workers in the mining industry, and transportation and warehousing. Next slide. I also wanted to talk about what's known as the construction focus 4 or the fatal 4. And this is data from 2011 to 2019. Each bar represents one of those years. And as you can see, for 2019, there were 709 deaths related to the construction focus 4 in the industry. So that represents 64% of all construction fatalities. And again, the focus 4 include falls, struck by incidents, electrocutions, and caught in between. And then if you kind of dig into the data a little bit, fatal falls to a lower level climbed to 401 deaths in 2019. And that accounted for more than 1 in 3 of construction fatalities that year. That was a 25% increase from 2018, which is very significant. And then in contrast, the number and proportion of fatalities from struck by incidents, 170, and from electrocutions decreased between 2018 and 2019. And the number of fatalities from caught in between remained relatively constant at 59. Next slide, please. And if you look at the fatal injuries in construction from the source, the number of construction fatalities from roofs, ladders, and scaffolds were the primary source, and they increased from 2011 to 2019. And that's consistent with the trend of increasing fatal falls to a lower level observed over this time span. Falls from roofs were involved in more construction fatalities than falls from ladders or scaffolds during each year of that time period. So the deaths involving roofs spiked in 2019 at 146. That was a 28% increase from the previous year. Next slide. And I just have two more data sets I wanted to present, and then I'll get into some more detail. But this slide shows the number and rate of fatal injuries in construction broken down by age group. And what you can see here is that middle-aged construction workers, and I'm talking workers in the age 45 to 64, accounted for the most fatal injuries on average between 2016 and 2019. However, if you look on the right-hand side, again, the rates, we're looking at blue, the total numbers, orange, the rates. The rates for older workers in the 65 plus age group was significantly higher. The highest rate of fatal injuries was 22 deaths per 100,000 workers, and that's double the rate of workers under 55. So that's a big difference. It's something to keep in mind in terms of trying to prevent these, is that as you get older, you're much more likely to suffer a fatal injury. Next slide. And this slide breaks down fatal struck by injuries in construction between 2011 and 2019. So the number of struck by fatalities slightly increased from 2011 to 2019 by about 8%. In 2019, the majority of, or 53% of struck by fatalities involved objects or equipment. Most of the time it was an object falling, it was falling objects from above. While the number of struck by fatalities involving objects or equipment decreased by about 20%, from 2018 to 2019, the number of struck by fatalities involving transportation vehicles increased by 21% in that same period. And then looking at caught in between fatalities, they fluctuated between 40 and 72 over this time period. And then lastly, from 2018 to 2019, the number of caught in between fatalities involving collapsing materials increased by 31%. Next slide. I also wanted to talk about the National Occupational Research Agenda, or NORA. It's how NIOSH manages its research portfolio. And there's really a lot going on under the NORA umbrella. One is we have a sector council. Brad Sand's part of it, and there's a lot of leaders within the industry that are involved in that. They've developed a research agenda for the nation, and that lays out 16 objectives for construction research in that agenda. It's available on our website. We also have a number of different work groups I'm going to get into and discuss the activities that are going on with our work groups and important topics in the construction sector. And then, we have a sector council that's part of those work groups are part of. They have regular meetings that we get together and we talk about issues in the construction industry. We plan research and plan communication activities related to addressing those. And then I also wanted to point out, if you visit our website, there's a lot of information about burden, need, and impact of various hazards in the industry. There's a strategic plan and goals that we've laid out, and then a lot of information about impact and links to many other resources. Next slide. So the next group of slides, I'm going to talk about some of the activities of our sector council work groups. I wanted to start off with COVID-19 because it's obviously a very timely issue. We set this work group up early on in the pandemic. It's being chaired by a representative from Liberty Mutual Insurance and the Laborers Health and Safety Fund of North America. There's really been a lot of activity on this work group. It's been extremely active. And the next several slides are just going to share some of the things that have come out of this work group that you might find of interest. Next slide. One of the things that was set up by this work group, as well as with CPWR, is what we call the COVID Clearinghouse. And this website, and you can see the link down at the bottom, it just contains a tremendous amount of information about COVID, preventing spread of COVID, workplace guidance information, frequently asked questions, training, and it's all focused on COVID and construction workers and preventing the spread of it. It also gets into state and local issues related to COVID, research, webinars that we've developed, and also information on the vaccine. So if you haven't checked out that website, I would recommend you do that. Next slide. We've also developed guidance for the construction industry, and this is a CDC NIOSH guidance. It's on the CDC website. You can go to the link on this slide, but it sort of lays out a whole series of precautions or mitigation measures that should be followed to prevent the spread, social distancing, personal protective measures, how to disinfect and decontaminate surfaces. And on the next slide, we also developed a couple of checklists. And again, this was done through the work group. And so these checklists were developed. One was developed for employers. The other was developed for employees. And it gets into a lot of additional detail beyond what I showed on the previous slide. The checklists can be downloaded and printed out, taken to the job site. Lots of really good information and links to other information through those checklists. Next slide. I also wanted to mention the webinars. We've been doing a series of webinars on COVID-19 from early on in the pandemic. I think at this point, there's probably been about 20 of them. This slide shows some of them that we've done. One was with ASSP. We also did a webinar with the National Institute of Building Sciences. But the majority of the webinars that we've done have been done on the CPWR platform. And each one of those webinars has been recorded, and the slides that were presented as part of the webinar were saved onto that website. So if you look up CPWR COVID webinars, you can just get a tremendous amount of information about COVID, preventing COVID. And I think the last webinar was related to the vaccines and providing a lot of detail on the vaccines. We've actually got another one planned for this Thursday. So if you have time available, I'd encourage you to participate in that. Next slide. The other thing that this work group did relating to COVID and construction is we've developed ventilation guidance. And this was something that the stakeholders on our council really felt was important. This was developed leading into the winter, and there was a lot of concern about building weatherization, buildings being closed up, and the potential for spread of COVID. And so this guidance on ventilation gets into appropriate levels of filtration, outdoor air usage, local exhaust ventilation, just a whole series of issues that are important in protecting workers. And, you know, ventilation is really higher on the hierarchy of controls than, you know, mass or some of the other recommendations that are contained in the guidance. Next slide. Okay, we also have a work group on fall prevention. I just wanted to quickly run through some of this. The chair of that work group is Tom Shanahan, who is a vice president with the roofers. And they're responsible for one of the two stand downs that we do every year, the fall stand down and the falls campaign. Next slide. And so this slide just shows several posters that we've developed. This was done in conjunction with OSHA and CPWR. And the Falls campaign originated actually out of the sector council. It was an idea of the council to address falls and try to make an impact in reducing the falls. We encourage construction employers to join the national campaign to prevent falls in construction and hold a stand down. Stand downs are voluntary events for employers to talk directly to employees about safety. And so these are just a couple of the posters that we developed. This is from several years ago, but there's 3 websites: the NIOSH website, the CPWR website, and the OSHA website, with a lot more information. If you have not gotten involved in that yet, we encourage you to do so. Next slide. This is an image of one of our stand downs from several years ago. It occurred at the MGM Grand construction site in Washington, where we had over 2,000 construction workers in attendance discussing the importance of fall prevention. You know, it's really a big deal. We also, I mean, this is obviously a very large event, but we also, because there's so many small businesses in the construction industry, we encourage small businesses to have stand downs as well. The stand down for this year for falls is the first week of May 3rd through the 7th, and the kickoff event will be on Monday, May 3rd, with the OSHA director, the NIOSH director, and a number of rest of the of leaders from the agencies. Next slide. This slide shows some of the webinars that we've done. This was from last year, but we had a webinar on fall protection. It included experts from Z359 committee and we had a webinar with the roofing industry. Tom Shanahan and some of his colleagues talked about fall prevention. And then also at NIOSH, we have a fatality investigation program. We had some of the states, excuse me, that we fund talk about fall prevention. Next slide. And this is just some of the infographics that we developed for the Falls campaign. And now, next slide, I want to get into struck by injuries. That's another area where we've actually just last year started a stand down. Brad Sant is one of the co-chairs for this work group, and there's just a lot of really good things occurring there. Wanted to thank Brad for his leadership. But struck by incidents are a leading cause of death amongst construction workers. Since 1992, they've been the leading cause of non-fatal injuries in the construction industry. And again, it's part of the OSHA Focus 4. Next slide. So this work group set up a website about struck by hazards and how to prevent them, and also about work zone safety in general. And so you can go to this website. Again, it's on CPWR's, it's on their domain, but there's a lot of great information available there in preventing struck by incidents. It gets into toolbox talks. It has infographics, workplace solutions. It's got a number of the fatality reports that NIOSH does. Next slide. And we've got a national stand-down event planned for April 26th. As part of that event, we'll have several webinars, one focused specifically on work zone safety, but we're also going to be addressing crane safety and dropped objects, dropped loads from cranes. So we're looking forward to discussing both of those issues as part of the stand-down. Next slide. This slide shows some of the infographics that we have just developed. So these are all available on the CPWR's website. They can be downloaded and used on the workplace. So again, this is for work zone safety. And on the next slide is another infographic we developed related to struck by incidents from cranes. There's 15,000 injuries per year from struck by incidents involving equipment. And so the infographic on the left is related to crane safety. The infographic on the right is laying out how to plan for a safe lift to prevent dropped objects and drop loads that can injure workers. Next slide. I also mentioned the FACE reports, and this is just a link. This is a screenshot from state FACE reports. Those are the fatality investigations. This is sorted by highway work zones. There's a lot of information, a lot of details, reports, images from some of the fatal investigations that have occurred on highway work zones. We have reports from both states as well as the federal NIOSH that are available on our website. And just to go ahead and wrap things up, next slide. I wanted to just touch on a couple other things that our office is involved in. One is NIOSH science blogs. If you can go to the next slide. We frequently publish on timely topics that are important to the construction industry. And so this slide just shows a number of the issues that we published blogs on over the last year or so. So one is on the future of construction, challenges and opportunities for safety and health. It gets into changes in demographics in the workforce, changes in technologies and equipment. We've got a science blog on hearing loss amongst construction workers and how hearing loss can be affected by other exposures in the workplace. We've got a blog on struck by injuries, one on heat stress. Another big one, we actually just stood up recently a center studying fatigue. And we know in work zones that could be a big issue. And so there's information about fatigue in the workplace and how that can affect injury and illness issues. And then next slide. And this is the really the last one. I just wanted to touch on prevention through design. This is a big area for us because it's much higher on the hierarchy of controls. We've been funding Arizona State to put on a series of webinars. It started last year, so the second one is going to be the end of May 26th through the 27th, on prevention through design in the construction industry. There's a report that's already been put out from the first meeting, but anyhow, if you're interested in this, you can reach out to me, or there's links on our website to get more information about this. And so we're working with Arizona State. We're also working with the National Safety Council. And actually, if you're available this Thursday, we're doing a panel discussion on prevention through design and construction that you may find interesting as well. And that wraps up my update. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much, Scott, and Dave as well. It's very useful to hear and all the projects that you're working on. I know sometimes we get involved in our projects in our little world, and we don't realize all the stuff, all the information that is out there that we can be taken advantage of. So these types of reports and feedback is really, really helpful. So thank you so much for coming with us, and for all our presenters today. We know we have some challenges, you know, as David Johnson talked about some of the numbers, those scare us. But then we're also very encouraged by a lot of the work that's going on. And we heard reports of, you know, things that we're doing at ARPA, things that are happening at AASHTO, at NIOSH, at Federal Highway. So we can be encouraged by the work that's going on. And we know that all of you here in the conference are likewise doing some great projects that not only improve the safety, but also the management of work zones, so that we're doing things as efficiently and not impacting traffic. So we're going to hear a lot more about these things. It's now time for a short 15-minute break. And during that time, you are free to jump from table to table, and Matt will give you a little bit more about that. And then following this session, we will begin at 2:15 with our session on an update of what's happening at the clearinghouse.
Thanks, Brad. And I think we all agree this is a great start to a great conference. Little housekeeping note, we already talked a little bit about the table hopping in the beginning, but you'll look over to your right in the general chat. I'm answering some questions that came up in the Q&A. So thank you all for asking those questions in the Q&A. Really quick, if you do experience any delays or you can't see the slides for some reason, just refresh your browser. That's the best way to take care of that, we found. And also, all of these slides will be available at the conclusion of the conference. They'll go out in an email. There will be a PDF of the slides. So don't panic. Don't feel like you have to furiously scribble down everybody's infographics. You will have access to these slides. So without further ado, we will see you again for the Workzone Clearinghouse update and LMS overview at 2:15. Thank you.